Hi, I'm Conor Byrne, and this is That's What I Call Marketing, the podcast where you'll hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique insights. Well, today's episode takes us out of the studio and into the cinema. It is with former head of social at Ryanair, Michael Corcoran. Now, if you follow Michael, you will have seen a few months ago he announced he was leaving Ryanair, but not much else came out at the time. So, how could the guy who was applauded by not just the industry, but Ryanair themselves for transforming their social, leaning into their, well, let's say irreverent tone of voice, be leaving the company? What happened? Well, I asked Michael would he share not just that story, but the story before all of that with you, and he said yes. In fact, he asked would I do it as he launched his new agency or offering, which is called Frankly. So this episode was recorded in the Stella Cinema in Dublin. Now, unfortunately, the guys Michael had doing the sound on the day, we had a few problems. I don't know if they weren't plugged in or something. Now, no jokes about low cost here, please. So unfortunately, we are working with the sound from the camera of the day. So we ask that you be a little bit forgiving of the sound and some of the background noise. But all that aside, it is a great episode and insight into how Michael views social, his approach to it at Ryanair, and what he plans to do next. Look, you definitely can't apply the Ryanair tone of voice or model to most other companies, but you can learn a lot from this episode. And thinking about why you're on social is one of the things you can definitely take away. But there's so much more. So listen on to the mastermind behind Ryanair's social renaissance, Michael Corcoran. Of course, please do subscribe, share, rate, and review the show wherever you are listening or watching. It really does help us reach a new audience, build this community of great marketers. And of course, if you would like to reach and engage a community of great marketers, you can get involved with That's What I Call Marketing through show sponsorship, content partnerships. Get in touch with us. That's what I call marketing.com, and let's talk.
Michael, thanks a million for joining me on That's What I Call Marketing. So we have to get straight into it. I mentioned you're the former head of social at Ryanair. Now, is it true that you left because you were the person that threw the cake at Michael O'Leary's face in recent months, or is something else behind it?
Like true Ryanair PR, I can neither confirm deny any allegation of false. No, I'm not. It was, a bit of a rocky one. If anyone saw my LinkedIn post, they could probably speculate a lot that happened. As I said to you earlier, when we were talking, my brother gave me a good phrase to use when it came to setting up a business. You can get me up the steps of the courthouse, but don't get me in the door. So, look, in short, I worked there for nearly 2.5 years. It was an amazing time, an amazing opportunity, a huge brand with huge potential to do great things, and we were given permission to do it. It came to kind of fruition that some of the behaviours of certain leaders within the marketing department I just wasn't happy with, and when it started to impact, again, my team, I took a stand. Nothing was done, so I decided to walk out, and here we are.
Take a stand and walk. I mean, that's a very brave decision. I'm not going to make you a hero of the hour, although it is your thing. But
thankfully, I don't have an ego because this is all a bit mad.
But brave thing. I mean, you've got you have family, you've kids, and to actually just go and say, actually, no, I'm out.
It was kind of calculated at the same time. Like, again, when I told my wife I was about to do this, she lost her shit. She thought it was I did something wrong. Which, again, I would not blame her. I am liable to do a lot of stupid shit over my career, my years, so I'm usually one to blame. But after explaining to her the situation, and also, we built a lot of currency in the work that we did at Ryanair for the last couple of years, so I knew I'd be okay if I took a step. Again, I don't want to be a martyr, I don't want to be a hero. I wasn't a victim of it, but I was a witness to it. And whatever little bit of integrity I had left as a human being and a professional, I had to do something. Because I knew there were people in there who did leave, who were just so demotivated and lost energy that they didn't want to say anything. There were people who were in there who were trying to build a CV. People in there who have young families who couldn't take the risk, or people who were trying to save their house. 6 months of pay slips to get a mortgage. I was kind of set up, I was okay, and I knew myself, whatever I do next, I would be fine. I did enough to prove that the work worked, and I might bring a bit of value to somebody else's business.
Can I ask just a bit? I want to get onto lots of other topics, but
Sure.
but about maybe culture, because maybe there's a perception from the outside looking in that the culture of Ryanair is probably reasonably aggressive.
And that would be fair. Like, it's firm and fair, and there's no bullshit to how the business is operating. That has its perks, because as marketeers, we have drank a lot of Kool-Aid and we speak a lot of fluff. And it's taken me a lot of years to actually get that out of my system. So much so that when I went to go work there originally, that was attractive. And there are plenty of parts within the business and plenty of really good people within the business that do a lot of great work. Sadly, I can only speak from my experiences within the marketing department rather than anywhere else.
Yeah, but enough for you to make the stand. Let's talk about social media at Ryanair, and hopefully people saw some of the quotes that were up here of things that were said. We had, was it called the most savage airline account, I think, by the Washington Post, no less. McDonald's wrote, "You and your team have redefined the industry. You were in and opened new horizons for every social team across the world." Like, that's head of social from McDonald's, which, you know, big accolades. And there was many, many more. But when you went in over 2 years ago to the social setup in Ryanair, what was that setup, and what were the things you kind of identified early?
Again, I'm never going to take credit for the tone of voice or the DNA of what the brand has. That's been there for years. The PR days of the old, what O'Leary did in front of people, some of the social media and some of the marketing advertising that was done for many years, we just brought it back to life. At the time, it was COVID, so like airlines were decimated. They couldn't really talk much about what to do or where to go. So the team was a little bit fragmented. They were more focused on triaging a lot of problems and actually using the platforms to their full potential. So, like, I take a lot of pride in developing a strategy and putting a really good team together. Timing and luck was a really big part of it as well at the same time. So, you know, and once I was given a carte blanche opportunity to do what was right for the brand, the rest is history. Now, it took a little while, and there are still people in there who disagree with what we did. But based on the insight that was laid out in front of us and the strategy that we developed, for us, it was the best use of the platforms to try and deliver low-cost, high-return reach for the business. Earned media, which again, as a low-cost brand, marketing budgets aren't big. So when you're competing against other airlines in the category, even other brands, they're using 10x the budget that you would have. So every penny counts in headcount and media spend. And they would obsess about that, and the business obsesses about it. But when I came in at first, I was given time to observe, and it was literally starting from scratch and putting the piece in place, developing a strategy, getting buy-in on the strategy from the senior people, and then iterating and assembling a team to execute on it that I thought was fit for purpose. It took about 6 months after the time the strategy was sold in to try and see it all click, because when you start to build a team, they need to understand how to deliver. They all came from different backgrounds. They weren't your pure social media people and marketeers. They were the greatest bunch of misfits you could assemble to deliver on the strategy. But when it clicked and you saw the moment it clicked and you saw the moment the business understood the potential opportunity here, we got the permission then to take it further.
Talk to me about the strategy development piece, because that's very important to get that right. Was there a strategy in place and then you were kind of evolving it, or did you have to kind of come in?
There was no documented strategy, and like that's the biggest thing that I guess pisses me off in the industry, that I've done a lot of these talks over the last couple of years, and the normal question, I might do it here, hopefully you'll prove me wrong, but I'm probably quite confident how it goes. Hands up here, who has a documented social media strategy on a piece of paper that answers a problem or a gap, that has a set of guiding principles that get you from where you are now to where you are next? That is not tactics, that is not how you use the channel, that is not the formats, that is not the execution, an actual strategy. Nobody in the room has it. And that scares the shit out of me. Especially because we all know the potential that the platforms have. Everybody's using it and investing as best they can in it. But yet nobody's thinking strategically about how to use the platform. And that really worries me.
Yeah.
And that gave us an advantage already. Because not only it gave us a set of decisions on what to do, more importantly, it allowed us to make decisions on what to do. It allowed us to make decisions on what to do. What not to do. And sometimes strategy is about sacrifice. And sometimes we're not willing to do that. And when you're a new form of communications and you're getting pressure from a brand team, PR team, commercial team, ESG, HR and talent to stick this on social, you're not only competing against yourselves, you're competing against a category. Not only are you competing against a category, but you're competing against all other brands. Not only are you competing against all other brands, you're competing against your sister posting her bottomless mimosa brunch on the internet, or your brother's walk with the dog in the mucky park. It's a very competitive space. And if you don't make a set of decisions and think about what is the role for the platform and how can it make impact for your brand or business, you're already losing. But yet brands are spending $500,000, $1 million, $2 million on creative, and then when the creative doesn't work, high-paid media team can just stick a load of media behind it because this isn't working, and now we have to force it down people's necks, even though it won't work again. And there's an absence of it, and I don't know what happened. The only things I consume is just that social media is so young in its existence, about 15 years old. Like above the line in TV is what, 60 years old, maybe TV 70 years old, and they don't even know what they're doing, and they're still getting it or figuring it out. But yet, for some reason, you have people who say they black and white know how to use these platforms, even though they change every day. And it's this domino effect of this bullshit that comes down that's creating this sea of chaos that everybody's losing, but all the platforms are winning because we're putting all this content, all this money on them, and they're putting it in their back pockets.
What were the things you decided you weren't going to do? What were we want to do this?
Well, we weren't going to be a traditional brand because Ryanair in its DNA has been a disruptor. It has been a polarizing brand since 1984. You flew Dublin to London on Aer Lingus or British Airways, it would have cost you 300 or 400 euro. Ryanair came to 10 or 15 quid. Democratized travel, made it accessible for all. So even in the business, they disrupted. But as a tone and as a brand in their advertising for years, they did the same thing. So that was like a superpower for the brand, but yet for some reason, it got lost along the way, and they wanted to be more customer first. And what I mean by customer first is the marketing customer first. It's that fluffy, we love our customers. No, they fucking don't. What they provide is a low-cost product that is really good, and that's good to customers. But yet they shied away from that, and they didn't lean in on the good things about what Ryanair. So we wanted to be polarized because everybody on social wants to be this fake, filtered brand, this polished premium brand, and it just becomes winning on wallpaper. And the second we immediately stop doing that, you start looking different. That's one step in the journey of grabbing attention. Again, there were other things around not talking less about the actual travel experiences, the core things you automatically default to, and change it from being aspirational to being relatable. And when you start to get in and understand the relatable behaviors of people and why they go to social media in the first place, and cater to that needs first. That's the second half of that after you grab attention. So I'll give you a quick run through the strategy, will I?
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Pens and papers and it.
Well, no, I can share it. I normally put it up on the slide. So again, the crazy thing is like, we're not afraid to share the strategy because when it gets condensed down, it is actually quite simple. And it should be for everybody to buy into. But it's doing all the work in advance to get to that set of decision-making skills. It's like all good strategy, and if I'm mansplaining, which I probably do half the time, I apologize, is based on 4 variables: brand, category, and customer, and the social media landscape. Surprise, surprise, you know? So what we did is we went to find insight, gaps, problems, and opportunities that we think the platforms could solve for brand and business. And we got to 2 or 3 problems that it could solve. You know, Ryanair needed low-cost, high-return reach, top-of-mind awareness, because we couldn't afford it or we weren't going to invest in, and social media was not placed to promote. But the only way we could do that that was the problem. The opportunity was we needed to be a disruptor. We needed to stand out. We needed to be polarizing on the platforms in order to garner as much attention as possible. Again, surprise, surprise, Ryanair grabbing attention in the headlines. Yeah, miracle. The second was that, you know, social media is filled of this fake filthy statements. And it was all about what we can do for you rather than understanding customers' motivation on the platforms. The main 2 motivations people go to social media, and I will keep saying this till I get sick. 1 is to be entertained, and 2 is to escape from the chaos or the realities of life. And if you're there forcing passive content or heavy ads on the platforms, they're immediately going to switch off. So it's about understanding those motivations first. And again, you think about what you do in your day as busy marketeers. You're working maybe 10 to 12-hour days. You're on awful commutes in and out of Dublin, or even just to get across Dublin, it's bloody awful. But you've got these small pockets of small bursts of consumption habits where most of us use social media. It's 10 minutes on the commute on the dart. It's 5 minutes sitting on the toilet. And don't lie, you've all done it. It's those little moments of serotonin and escapism most people look for, but yet we don't cater to those needs in the content that we create all the time.
One other thing, though, would you agree, people go to social media to give out?
Oh, yeah, and that's the next thing. We're just about
getting there, okay.
You got ahead of me. So the third problem Ryanair had was people had a different perception about traveling low cost than what they should have had. And this was being played out in social. So there's, again, a lot of first world problems. If you understand Ryanair and you read the terms and conditions, you understand the product. But for some reason, you had these privileged people and a privileged audience who gave out constantly about first world problems because they didn't read the terms and conditions, or their expectations were just way too high. They wanted USB chargers, massage seats on a 2-hour flight to Malaga that cost them a tenner.
Emirates, Ryanair prices.
So we tapped into that and we wanted to try and put some manners on it. So rather than trying to communicate it in the other way, we wanted to find a way to shift that perception and use the platform to do it and make people hate Ryanair less. I'm not going to talk about brand love, that's another piece of fluff. It was just hate the brand less and shift the mindset.
I wanted to finish that one. Were you able to measure hate the brand less?
Yes, brand survey.
Okay.
So we didn't get to reach 2 million people in 18 months just about it with Brian done. We actually then asked our insights team, well, how can we measure this to actually show that it's working? So within our brand surveys that went out to, I think, 30,000 people, I might be fluffing that. I have somebody in the room give me a nod to say, was it about that? It was about that? Okay. So they went out to about 30,000 people, and in those we asked the question about, what is the forms of communication, the things that actually make you like Ryanair more. I would have preferred to say like paid us less, but again, that was a battle I lost. But in that, we started at a baseline of 2 in 10 people like the brand because of what we put out and how we behaved on social media. Honest, transparent, uncomfortably, for some people, but that's what we did. There were 2 people who were detractors, and you're always going to get detractors with your business. You'll always have somebody that'll have a bad customer experience. A problem will happen, a human error, somebody will have a bad customer experience no matter what. So that will never change. But what we saw golden was 6 passive people who didn't know and were undecided. And over the course of 2 or 3 quarters, we saw that 2 in 10 go to 3 in 10, to 4 in 10, to 5 in 10. And social was one of the main levers was driving that likeness to the brand. So that had impact in the business, that had, believe it or not, that we were potentially changing the mindsets of people. Anecdotally, if you were, I guess, a viewer of Ryanair's content over the years, you would have saw 2 years ago the comment section before just a vitriol and hate for the brand.
Yeah.
It was sective, absolutely sective. But over the course of the couple of years, we started to see change. Not only were they being entertained by the content, we actually saw low engaged advocates come fight our corner. And I'll explain that a little bit. So when you fly like Ryanair, you'll fly from A to B, you'll get as close to as possible on time for low cost. Ryanair does its job. But yet nobody's going to go and hug every crew member or pilot going, you're the best airline ever. They're not going to rush to social media and go, this is the best brand ever. I've had the great. No, we just did our job. Okay, there's the right keen quote about the postman. You don't open your door every day to the postman and give him the biggest hug and a high five and say, you smashed the postman back. You're the best postman
we do
ever.
For bus drivers, though. We thank them get off the bus.
We do. Yeah. We do. But the postman did its job, and Ryanair was the same for many people. So we were left with nothing but negativity at first. But as the content started to unlock, and as we started to tap into relatable moments of cabin no cost, as we started to explain the business model to those who were smug enough to understand it, they started to appear in the comment sections because they saw other people complaining about terms and conditions that they didn't read or first world problems. And they actually started to fight our corner first, helping shift the perception. Right. And now if you look at the comments, yes, it has a certain amount of negativity, but the sentiment tone towards the brand has completely changed from what it was 2 years ago.
And that obviously then internally huge, I guess, flawless and people loved it. You mentioned earlier on that there were some that didn't agree with the strategy and maybe still don't. Why was that when it was proving out that it was working and performing? What was the challenge there?
They never could understand or articulate it in a very good way as marketeers.
What their problem was?
What their problem was with it. I think it was more subjectivity than actually looking at the information in front of them. And that's sometimes where we fail as marketeers. There's too much subjectivity in it. We need a certain amount of business acumen and experience and gut and feel to make a decision in. But they were wanting to be something the brand is not. And when you start doing that, people will call out bullshit straight away. And no better place to call out that bullshit is a place where they can actually talk back to you.
Yeah. Was there a moment as you were kind of creating all the work and the team were creating the work that it was like an accelerator that you knew this was right? Like this.
Oh yeah, there was a come to Jesus moment, and it was absolutely, and it was a squeaky bum moment too. It was around the time of the Tories Downing Street parties in the UK. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with it.
During COVID?
Just on the outside of the COVID, when things are coming back to normal, and there was a scale or a table, and Boris Johnson, the rumours, I think the inquiry's on now about the WhatsApp conversations. It's absolute chaos.
We lost them. We lost them all.
Yeah, but yet they went to the High Court to say that you can't show them. So that was it. Weird. But essentially, at the time it happened, we started zooming in on that as an opportunity in a moment. And there was one moment where there was the scale the NHS brought out about the levels 1 to 5 around how you can actually engage with people in certain groups. And there was no golden hardens. We took that at the time and we parodied it and we worked on copy that was on it. And there's one line of copy that we knew we were probably going to get in trouble if we shared it for approval first. Right. And there was that moment of, do it now and ask for forgiveness. And if this works, we're sorted. If it doesn't, we're gone. And that line, it was off your tits. Right. And you can imagine a corporate brand putting that on a piece of content. You're getting in trouble again. And it was very close. So it went out anyway and it started to get traction. You had the Tories who enjoyed it, or no, not really enjoyed it. And then you had the anti-Tories and the anti-Brexiteers who were like, this is exactly what we all want to say. This is nonsense. I can't believe you're doing it. But you could see our marketing director peer over his little pond there. And I go, what the fuck have you done? And I'm like, just wait, just trust me on this. Then all of a sudden, like, it picked off and got good traction. Where I'm getting to, the moment that it happened was, I think it was the next day or the day after, the Financial Times wrote a full article about brands being more Ryanair, about being irreverent what's going on in the world and being true to your tone of voice. The following Sunday, page 7 print of the Sunday Times, that piece of content on little old social media where the bunch of 12-year-olds tweet all day was actually in the print paper. Right. And why is that important? Because most of the people who are the big decision makers in the business are reading those papers. They're not on social as much as us. Yeah. The fact it was in print, it means investors, CEOs all saw it. When we knew we had license, that was printed out with a handwritten letter from both our CEOs for both articles and put on our table. That was literally that you have permission now to disrupt. And from that was like the papal smoke going up and like, okay, let's supercharge it now. We got this.
So how did you go about supercharging? Because again, looking into Ryanair, it looked like their machine, and it was just.
It was a machine. We assembled a team of 8 people, including myself, and they were a mix of different types of characters and people that were needed. We needed social media managers, kind of the traditional people, detail-oriented people that needed the platforms, and we needed them basically to steer the ship. But we also needed to find people who were creators, because the strategy was a creator-led approach. And again, we can unpack that a little bit more. Maybe I can talk about it later for the purposes of saving you 25 minutes of boredom. But essentially, we assembled this. I know it's locked. We are going to sacrifice one of you marketing directors to marketing.
It's going to be the one with their hand up.
Yes.
The strategy.
Yes. First question, you're gone. But essentially, what we did was we assembled people who knew the platforms, who knew how to take a low-fi approach to creative, knew how to understand creative content, match those detail-oriented people to figure out a way to deliver as much content across reactive and always on as possible. Within the execution of the strategy, there were 2 leaders. There was reactive and community, who did what I said in the tin, and there was always on. So we divided the team essentially to 2 tribes. And the commitment was 50% of your working week is dedicated to that tribe. So we had 4 people on reactive, maybe 4 people on always on. And in reactive, they were the newsjackers. They were the people who found and developed discovery processes to try and find what was happening in the news. And then we created processes and conditioned ways to then write and develop entertainment-like content that was indirectly or directly connected back to Ryanair and do it at pace. And again, we can unpack that further if you want. On the other side then was always on. They were the people who were trying to deliver the perception change messages. And in that, they were delivering as high a frequency as possible, static and video production creative that landed those messages in an equally entertaining and self-deprecating way, and delivered that 1 week in advance that then was put into our schedule plan. So the 2 of these working together allowed us to build and grow our foundations. And again, a jab hook is something that somebody said to me before that stuck in my head. I won't take credit for it. But essentially what we were doing, it was like we were hitting a right jab with reactive content. We had this big opportunity to reach as many people as possible with the reactive content. Now, what I can say about the algorithms, aside from that, because anyone who says they know that they're talking about algorithms is also full of shit. They're spoof merchants, okay? Even the algorithm, the robot itself doesn't even know and is trying to figure it out. But what we do know is that your content gets served to a small pool of low-engaged users. And if they engage with it at a certain speed or a certain rate, it's going to push it out to more low-engaged users. So our content is all about breaking that threshold. And when we reach loads of low-engaged users, we then had a small window of opportunity. If you engage with that content, it says, okay, you like this piece of content, whatever it is. So we're either going to give it more content from that account or similar content of that style to you. Yeah. And it creates that window of opportunity. If you can find other content that can equally engage with them after that moment of I guess, virality, for want of a better word, you can equally grow your foundations. And by using both of those styles of content consistently at frequency over time, we got our foundation. So I think it was on 5 million on average when this really started to take off, to averaging 30 million plus people going without any paid. Right?
This is That's What I Call Marketing. If you would like to get involved with the show through sponsorship or content partnerships, visit that'swhaticallmarketing.com.
Talk about the frequency, like what sort of frequency?
Again, people will speak about how much is content. Again, it depends. It depends on what you're doing, how many channels you're on. But there was no science to it at first. But again, I was on another podcast before, and when I explained, they go, "Wait, Michael, that isn't actual science." I was like, "Okay." There was a method.
Yeah.
So we needed to see, say always on from a point of view, we need to see, well, what was the max amount of content you could deliver on a week-to-week basis in advance? So we just set a number, and looking at how long the average piece could take, we said, we need 10 pieces of video created every week, and we need to get it consistently 1 week in advance. When we reach that and we get comfortable doing it, we're onto something. Equally same with static creative. So we built this system, and it was awful at first. It took forever for us to get there. And again, it wasn't perfect, but we eventually got there because people were new, people will fit in there. And the quality of the content wasn't great at first too. Again, we were using static images with puppet minutes just to play down to trends, to the point where we actually had real people on camera and improving the quality of the creative concept. Yeah. But we eventually got there. When we got into our rhythm, we started to see, well, what content is performing and being sticky? Okay, we're going to put that into a bank. We called it the Banger Bank. Great name. And in that Banger Bank, we just started to build basically a bucket of content that we needed to reuse and could reuse. And essentially, when we got to that threshold of hitting, I think it was 100,000 video views, which is absolutely mad, by the way. If you were asked, could you hit 100,000 video views in most brand piece of content, they'd be like, yeah, I'll take it. But that was our baseline. So we started to build a system. When we had a reserve of content that was big enough to bring back into our weekly planning cycle, we dropped the amount of content we made. So we went from making 10 to making 8. We brought 2 in for the bank. Then we went on again, we refined, got better, we learned. Then we went from 8, 6, and we brought in 4. And we got down to making 4 pieces of video creative every week, bringing 6 back in, refining, tweaking, spending less time. And what that happened, it allowed us to do, we were able to build this catalog of content that was the foundations of our output. We were able to reuse and recycle content, and we were also then able to free up time and capacity to focus on another project that we need to fix within the strategy. Now, there's one thing I'll call out here as well, and I don't know whether you're going to ask it, is, well, but Michael, you're reusing content. You can't do that in social because every creative agency, every social media agency, everyone says once it's used once, you can never do it again. And you've got to use all this content that we make for you all the time and never use it again. Why? Because that's how creative agencies make bloody money. You know, and it's the biggest, again, Ponzi scheme the social has been for the last few years. Because the diagnosis for, to win on social, you must need new content all the time, a conveyor belt of 30 pieces of content, a full content plan every month, but you can never put it on again. Imagine if I went to you as a marketeer and said, right, I want to make a TV ad, Michael. I want to spend 250 grand on it, but we can only put it on RT2 at 9 o'clock tomorrow night, never use it again. You tell me to fuck off. We need frequency, we need repetition, we need to land our message over time. But yet for some reason on social, you can't do that. You can never reuse a piece of content. But the reality is the content itself is only seen again by a small pool of people, those little tiny high engaged users. And if they see it again, good, because that's recall, that's repetition, that's frequency. But for the vast majority, they'll only see it for the first time. So again, we debunked all of this bullshit. We created a system that actually got us more bang for buck. So rather than one video delivering 100,000 video views once and never using it again, we were using it every maybe 12 to 16 weeks over a course of a 1.5 to 2 year period. And the funny thing is, as we built the system, the performance of the content grew over time. The foundations grew over time. So that 100,000 then became 200,000. Then it became 300,000. Some of them hitting 1 million. So the return on investment of the content became, rather than, X amount of money or X amount of resource for 100,000 views, it became the same amount of resource for 3 or 4 million video views.
Was the pace relentless in trying to create that, particularly at the beginning? Because
I say it was an absolute gobshite even. But again, I wanted to create a culture of delivering in the right way and hitting goals and get the process. And we still had a lot of fun. If we were creating boring content, I'm sure they would have walked in the door a hell of a lot faster. But the fact that we were delivering something that was right and true, and we were finding methods and ways to improve it over time, I think it got a bit easier. It was challenging, but like all the work it should be. But the guys had creative freedom, they had a license, and they had a playground to do things really, really well.
Did you get anything wrong?
Oh, it's tight. You always get it wrong. But that's the difference about being brave. And being brave on social or marketing can differ for everyone. But Ryanair had it. And again, everybody complains about Ryanair anyway. So seeing a negative piece of content wasn't really happening. There were moments where us as humans, we are emotional. We are going, shit, that was bad. But in most cases for the content, it was fine. We understood, we could compartmentalize. And if they did have a bad moment, well, I took accountability for that straight away. It wasn't their problem. There are moments I think that went really wrong, and there were moments where it went wrong, but it was good that it went wrong at the same time. I'll give you an example. England's World Cup squad announced we had Jordan Sancho. And he didn't make the squad, so we put out a piece of content that was, the context of it was always look on the bright side, you can travel with us. And again, that's what the context was, and it wasn't well received in that way. So we didn't do enough due diligence just knowing that Jordan Sancho missed the penalty in Euro 2020. And there was a lot of, I think, toxicity and bullying around that people connected it to it out of context. Were we focusing on that? No, we weren't. But that doesn't stop the internet from doing it, and they will always do it. So you had United fans backing him up, you had English fans who were backing him up, you had all this completely exploded, who were getting offended on his behalf. And then you had the people who are influenced, who do the same thing, and that just supercharges. Our lovely friend Stephen Bartlett, our CEO, staunch United fan, got outraged on their behalf, because he's probably mates with them, and took it in hand to screenshot it and put it on LinkedIn and was like, holy shit, we're fucked. So that went and exploded. But what happens with an anonymity tweet when it takes it out of context? You have people who get outraged on somebody else's behalf. You have people who just genuinely don't like you for some reason, whether it's a bad customer experience or don't believe the values the brand have, and who will go after you. And then they're just idiots on the internet who will take you down because you appeared in their feed and it's your moment and to be cancelled. And you've got to be okay with that. Now, were there things that could have been things to mitigate that? Yes, there are. One of those is we tagged Jordan by mistake. We don't normally tag accounts unless they're public figures. If they're public figures or politicians, fair game, we will rip them apart because you can. Some people know. For those who don't, search Ryanair and Prince William and connect the dots. So when we saw that, we have to do something about this because the media weren't going to because of their secret handshake with the royal family. So it was a great opportunity. So then, okay, well, why don't we share a picture of a seat with the armrest? So the guys went and did it. They got the piece. There was a set of seats downstairs. They go, we put it up and giving enough of the information to make the joke still work without getting us in trouble. So it was essentially, William, we saved you a seat. Now, that could have been any William. That could have been Josie from, Ellison County Clare who called Ryanair and went, guys, it's our 50th anniversary. I want to surprise my husband, Seamus, with a holiday. Can we stick it and I'll post up on social as part of it just for the day? Sure. What I mean by that, we mitigated so much that it can be interpreted into anything, and the audience were let decide what it was. So we put it out, blew up as it normally did, because people understood it. I was at home playing fetch with my dog in the green. I get a phone call from the PR team. And it says, Michael, what have you done? I went, what? Kensington Palace have called and they said they wanted a piece of content taken down or a public apology from the CEO or a statement as to why he did it. And I went, oh. I said, have you contacted the legal team? Should we have? And they said, are we liable? And they said, we're not. So they said, well played. So that was fair. And I went, well, what do you want to do? They said, well, I have to go talk to the gaffer now and figure it out. So they went to him and talked and they asked him, well, what do you want to do? He said, well, I'm not going to apologise. I said, well, what? Well, we could make a statement, so can we just delete it? Well, we can, because we got what we needed from it. There was screenshots galore, it was shared everywhere, so we got what we needed. So we called him back and went, yeah, we'll happily take that down. Fair play, thank you, bye. And it was just done. It was done.
Not a lot of people have maybe the tone of voice of Ryanair. Right?
Very few.
Very few. There's few notables that had that enjoyable, humorous tone of voice and being able to push it that far. And I think, people listening to this or people here today, yeah, that's all great. Like my brand doesn't talk that way and can't talk that way, and therefore this is all kind of interesting, but not really useful to me. What would your response be to that?
I always caveat Ryanair are the exception and they're not the norm. A bit like the Paddy Powers of the world and a bit like even the Allies of the world when it comes to their tone of voice. However, that doesn't mean you can't learn about how we developed the strategy, how we put a team that could execute that were fit for purpose, who knew platforms and knew how to deliver it, and then deliver content in a way that people want and consume. The problem is people are taking advertising of old and they're sticking it on social, thinking that that's how it's going to work, where it's not. Yes, paid media to an extent, because there's a trade-off there. This is a paid ad, we know what it is, but that's not the majority of what people consume. When it comes to content, it's completely different. So understanding the motivation, which I said earlier, entertainment and escapism, moving and being comfortable with decoupling a bit from being overly premium and polished on the platforms to being more real and low-fi. Again, that is down to then feel for what the brand is, because some brands are premium brands and they want to be positioned. Does that mean they can't deliver premium content on the internet? No.
Which kind of goes back to your point later on, but it depends.
It
Do you
depends.
know what I mean? It all does. It
All
depends.
and that's my answer every time.
Yeah, which is a good answer though, I think.
You know, because when people ask, well, how do I, I say it depends. Like, again, you have to unpack and understand, well, what's the problem you want to solve? Can social do? What's the reality then? Time, resource, and budget. Do you have what you need to actually deliver on this effectively? If not, we make a set of decisions on how we do it. Do you even have budget, or do you just have human beings and plenty of them to do it? Okay, let's find a way to solve maybe one or two of those problems now and next. Build a case for actually how the platforms can actually deliver impact. Stay focused on that. And then hopefully go to the guys involved and give them good business and brand rationale and try and unlock some more. But at the moment, we're not doing a very good job of it. And also social media professionals are doing a really shit job of it. Like, we're to blame for what's going on. We're to blame for C-suites not understanding this, because they have a perception of fluffy social media, and rightfully so, because we aren't building the case with them against brand and business to unlock and get a respect for the opportunity that's there.
You were able to tie, the social media work to what you call a brand you love,
Or less hate.
Less hate, shifting perception, which is important. Were you able to connect it to commercial outcomes?
Yes and no. Holistically, we could have. But what the fear of that is, we were confident knowing that it didn't matter how much marketing you invested in Ryanair, the quality of the product would deliver the commercial needs. And there were other problems to solve for the business beyond the commerciality. If we started to connect and track data and track conversion, we would probably lose the essence of what it was. We get bogged down and focused on conversion metrics rather than brand building metrics or perception changing metrics, and then we would not have won and delivered what we did. Like, that data is important. There are important conversion and capabilities of social media. But when it comes to solving problems, branding and perception are probably two big areas. Reach is probably the most important KPI I would ever track on social. After that, the rest of it is vanity and fluff.
So you weren't concerned with, or being asked to kind of say, how does this convert to bums on seats?
Some people, right, and we can show anecdotally, but the business were confident. And like, I'll give you an example. Like, again, O'Leary went to the marketing department a while ago, and he goes, look, I get marketing, I understand marketing, but I'm confident that if I didn't have one person in that marketing team there, or 1 cent spent on marketing, that we would still reach 128 million passengers by 2026. So what's the role of marketing? What a bomb to drop. And I was, because it's his right. And like, everything we did was built on understanding the business and how we can plug ourselves and be a representation of that. And that's where we had the tension with other marketeers within the team, wanting to be this warm, customer-friendly, fuzzy brand, and wanting to do all this marketing. But it wasn't Ryanair. And that's what was so brilliantly simple about what we did. We were being transparent and honest. We were being ourselves. And we did it in a way that was right for the brand and business.
Yeah, yeah.
And the rest is history. Like, it just completely exploded, far beyond my expectations.
Really?
Of course it did. Yeah. Like, the Washington Post writing about it.
Yeah.
A piece of content appearing on Jimmy Fallon, Tonight Show on US television.
Yeah.
Like, when we saw it, that was our, like, shit, we're done. Like, I can retire now. I can go back farming. I'm just
You can't until you're interviewed with the local radio station.
Oh.
That's going to be your biggest.
well, that's that's.
No, I think this is lovely though.
That's probably a sign that we must have done something right when the Kilkenny people is calling me for an interview. Now, the only time I thought I'd be in the Kilkenny people is probably 2 occasions. One, if I was appearing in front of the district court, and 2, the death notice. So it's a bit wild that you know when this is happening that you must be doing something that is impactful. Beyond the echo chambers of the team, beyond the marketeers who are acknowledging your work, it was carried through to the actual customers and the journalists. And it was, this is all a bit mad if I'm being honest. Like, even see my stupid logo, Pink Air, it's not a midlife crisis.
Actually, Pink Air is
it's for charity.
Charity.
My neighbour Lynn is going through breast cancer at the moment, so we did share it at a fundraiser. So it may be a midlife crisis. It has been a very emotional time for me, so maybe I'm projecting through that. But no, it'll be gone soon. It'll be gone for Christmas.
Look, obviously we're here today, and we're going to get to questions for people here. Mike has the my catchbox is going to throw in your direction in I'm going to hurt somebody. I did say that. I did say this is not too bad with it. But frankly, you're launching an agency, fractional leadership. Mark, what is it? What is it?
Get all those wacky words out. Let's get them out. This is like therapy. Frankly, good question. So, frankly, it's a consultancy of sorts. I'm trying to find a name other than consultancy because I don't even want to use any. I had the privilege of having about 3 months worth of phone calls with marketeers, CEOs, business people when I was going through 3 months of beautiful gardening leave courtesy of Ryanair. And I started, again, I had an idea in my head that, look, strategy is a big problem. Operationally is a big problem for a lot of businesses, internally and externally, in making this work. And I thought, well, that's what I do best. Like, beyond the creativity and the funny crap we put out on the internet, which is great, and I have my couple of funny ones that I love myself, a couple of them dad jokes. Where I get my kick out of what I do is spotting problems and trying to find a way to fix it, thinking outside the box. What are the challenges that we face, what we can tackle on top based on the realities of what business can have? And putting a team of people, no matter how big or small, together to try and figure that out. When you see that click, when you see them grow, when you see them develop, that's where I get my buzz from. And a lot of the same common problems were appearing when people were coming, oh, Michael, we want you to be head of social in this business. And I'm like, you don't need me as a head of social because you're just going to bring me in, pay me through the nose for money. You know, I'm going to sit under a head of brand. I won't have a seat at the table. You won't let me fight the fight that I think is right. So all I become is a really overpaid community manager. And I said, that's not what you need. These are the things you need. And there's a better way to do it. How about you have somebody who comes in and leads and advises you on what you need to do, define your strategy, coach and develop a team. And when you think it's to a sustainable way, hand over the keys and ride off into the sunset. And instead of hiring that overinflated head of social who'll come in and get frustrated and then walk out and you're in the same shit a year later, you could actually hire 2 people who are really good executionally and have then support and guidance of how to actually get there. And the same things came and unwrapped and unwrapped. And let's call a spade. I want to make some good money too. I do want to go back farming. That's not a joke. So this is building my retirement. But these started to unpack and unfold, and I went, there is a better way of doing it, and I'd like to do it with as many brands and businesses as I can. It's fun, it's challenging, putting on different hats time after time, and again, doing the things that I really enjoy. You know, calling stuff out, being true, and frankly, it's about going in about, you know, I'm not coming in to be anybody's friend. I'm coming in to be an impartial advice. I'm not a friend of the third party. I'm not a friend of the marketing team. I'm coming in to look at what's going on, what you need to achieve, can social, because I may even get to the point of going, do you know what, guys? You are spending way too much budget elsewhere. I don't even think you need social. Right. Yeah. And I'll give you an example of that. And I'll ask it to you. You probably have listened to it, so you probably know the answer. So if you do, be honest. When was the last time Nike posted organically on their Facebook account?
I did hear this.
You did hear this. They have 70 million followers on their Facebook.
Yeah.
And when was the last time they published on it?
I can't remember. Was it 3 years ago or something?
January 2018. So you think of a brand as big and famous and great at storytelling as Nike, but they're not posting on Facebook. What's going on here? You can make an assumption that they understand how everything else is working holistically, how they're delivering storytelling with other social media platforms. Then they made the decision not to use social in that way.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're not using social. That doesn't mean they're not using Facebook. If you go into their ads library, where on their profile, you can go down to transparency, you can go into ads library, you can actually see all the paid media campaigns that they are running. They run, on average, 1,900 paid media campaigns on Meta every given month. So you can be on social media without being on social media. And some people don't need to be on. But what I'll come in and I'll actually make the decisions for you in the most impartial way, based on, again, the insights available, how you're delivering comms across all of their touch points. Rather than doing the same thing ever, can social solve a problem that any other channel can't? And if there is an opportunity, well, then I'm going to try and build a way to do it. And if not, get off social. Because let's be realistic. Probably 90% of more brands that are using social media at the moment are just plugging a hole. It is wallpaper, and it's a waste of investment, in my humble opinion. And there are better ways to do it. And if that means getting off the channels and not doing anything, that's a good decision for your business.
And that's, you know, can be a great decision. And also, I think you mentioned kind of coming in and helping, like, I want a better word, a coach and mentoring people. There's, you know, we talked about this earlier. There can be people in organizations who may not be there yet, but actually having someone with that experience come in and say, look, I'm going to help you become the next head of social if that's required? But, it's probably a good investment for someone.
It's needed because it's probably one of the most invested areas in terms of education and development. And you've got everyone in the world, and how many people have probably done Mark Ritson's MBA at this stage? Many? Few? Anybody wanting to do it but can't get the sign off from your client or your brand? Not many. But again, there's not enough out there to do it. And when I talk to my team members, I always try to make a promise to them, whether it's a filler or not is another story, but I've really tried, is that I want to understand where they want to get to next. And if I know where they want to get to next, well, I can understand how in this current role can I coach and develop and get them there. And if not, what is the percentage of time within their week that we can open up to allow to unlock that? And I'll give you a couple of examples. Like I brought in a senior manager and I told her, what is your ambition? She wants to be a head of social. Well, I knew she wasn't quite there yet in strategic thinking and she needed more time managing people. But my commitment was in July 2022 or 2023, was it 23? That I would get her into my position because I also have ambitions and goals and grow and develop, whether it's in the business, around the business. I make that commitment. So if I make that commitment and try and deliver on that promise, I know I'm going to get the best out of people every time. And that's how I can nurture people and grow people all the time. And it's really, really important because there are not enough people out there who are doing it in the right way. They're all talking tactically, but they're not talking about how strategic to become better decision makers in the business. How to actually walk into a room when you have only 30 minutes with a CEO and trying to give a rational case as to why we need to develop and expand and invest more in this area. And most times they can't because they don't have the confidence, they don't understand how it's communicated, and they're just communicating off tactics. And that's where we get it wrong all the time.
Yeah, and it's good for the industry because it helps elevate everything.
Stay tuned for a bonus portion of this episode, a live questions and answers session with the audience.
We have time for some questions from the floor. So, sure, we have questions in the middle.
I'm not going to choke this because these people.
We'll pass the mic. We do need.
I don't have health insurance for the business just yet, so it's just what I'm saying. Do you want to talk?
It's not.
Did you sign the waivers coming in?
Right.
Short question, please.
I'm a short. Just maybe let us know who you are.
Therese Dwyer, a marketing manager for Club.
Hi, Therese.
Nice to meet you. It's just a short question. So, big fan of your work, first of all. But you talk about going in and building teams and setting up the right group. I'd love to get your thoughts on the kind of internal approach versus outsourcing. So, from your point of view, several brands, several agencies, all working across social. Is it your thinking that it's better to bring that in-house and find the right talent, or to continue to work with experts externally?
It depends. If you are working in an organic space where you need pace and speed, and you know it's a specific type of work you need to deliver, in-house is best because, again, it's going to speed up again, when you think of cost and return on investment and volume and frequency, building those internal capabilities are great. And there's nobody who's going to be ingrained in your brand more than the people who work there. So yes, there are merits to it, and for the majority of it, I know we're on in this journey of building in-house capabilities and big brands. That's happening. There are actually a few people here who are working in that space, and so they're here to understand a bit more about that. But again, it does depend. But there is a point where you're going to hit certain capacity, certain frequency, and certain things where you just won't be able to deliver. So having an external support as a sounding board, really, really important. Having external support to deliver on bigger campaign things or things that need to be done in huge volume, that's important. It's a mix of both is the dream, but not everybody has the mix of both. So you have to make a decision, and it goes back to what I said earlier, reality. Your time, your resource, and your budget. If you only have a small amount of budget, the reality of you working with a third party and getting value for money, there's a big question mark around that. Because again, this is probably another conversation we could have for another day, but the agency model is broken and it's not right. We all need to make money. And again, I'm here to bloody make money. Let's call a bloody spade a spade. But it all depends on how big the brand is, the realities of your time, resource, and budget to make that decision. Okay, so again, and then it all goes back to the most important thing: why? Why the hell are you doing it for the first place? And then build your team and your resource based on that strategy. Again, if you start getting ahead of that, you're either going overinvest in one area, do it wrong, and it may not be fit for purpose. But that's where somebody like Franklin can.
Thank you.
Any other questions there? One behind Joe.
Hello, it's Jen Power from McDonald's.
Okay.
I'm loving the honesty and the candor, and clearly you're at the top of your game. But for anyone listening in today, I suppose who's starting out in a career or early on in their social media career, what advice would you give your younger self? And what would you do differently?
Stick to farming. It's a tough one. I think a couple of things. Get the most rounded opinions on the landscape as much as possible. So what I try to do is I'm so curious about what I do all the time that I don't just listen to people that speak the same as me and talk about the platforms the same as me. I actually spend more time on people who think the opposite. People who are anti my views, anti everything that I say or do, to actually try and challenge my thinking even more, to go and see, am I directing people in the right way? Can I do it better? So it's probably having the most impartial view on the landscape as much as possible, because it's forever changing. Be relentless, be curious, and start to build the most rounded set of skills that you can. Because right now the reality is you need to be a jack of all trades when it comes to social. And the best social people I'm hiring at the moment are people who are very good creatively, very good at actually creating the content itself and then understanding the channels. And that comes with the problems too, because that means that, again, wear out, burnout, capacity, resource, it becomes a problem for the individual. But you need to have that varying set of skills to understand how to use the platforms. Does that sound like a believable answer? Right?
Well, this is the next question. How do you keep on top of all of that? Like, there's a lot to try to keep on top of. Where are you going to read and stay curious?
It's the same. I follow a specific amount of creators and individuals that are very good thought leaders, but then other people who are snake oil merchants who are selling the bullshit. There are plenty of them out there. I'm hoping I'm a little bit over here, but I'm on the way. So again, I try to have the most rounded view in the landscape as possible. But also, again, this is another one I should add to this. You know, when it comes to social media as well, you still need to know the timeless truths of how to use it from a marketing point of view, if marketing is what we're talking about. So given the literature and understanding, again, the basic principles of marketing is really important, because I think that's something that a lot of social media people are not. They're understanding the platforms, they're understanding the tactics, they're amazing creative people, but they don't understand how to bring it back to brand or business. So again, learning timeless truths and marketing would be important. So again, finding a few books or ways to learn that would be important. You know, the long and short of it, how brands grow, alchemy by Rory Stoller, and all those kind of key staples that they need to get into their system to then match social with marketing would be a really good thing.
Yes. They could listen to this podcast as well.
Like to tweet at a very basic level. And that's even what I try and teach my team first. I take away the shiny toys that are spoof, and I try and build it from scratch, Excel sheets and doing things manually to really earn and figure it out themselves before going and overpaying. Because again, social media as an industry, we're struggling to get investment in. So paying $100,000 for a listening tool, that's absolute bollocks. That isn't a true reflection of social media, is a waste of money in my opinion, until they come with a solution. Because they always come and sell it, oh, it's even better now. I said, okay, where are you pulling your data from? Twitter's API and public commentary on Facebook, which is, again, not enough.
Twitter, how's it gonna go next year?
It won't go away. It's not going away. Like, you know, it's the best to fuck it up. You know, so it won't. But again, the one thing I found interesting was the power play of big brands saying, oh, we're removing all our investment from these platforms. Do you think Elon is scared? No, because this happened to Facebook about 3 or 4 years ago whether I think the transparency and safety and the big players said they put away too, but they were like, we can deal with this, because what you need to understand is the majority of people who are using advertising on social media are SMEs and not the big players. When you put away the big players, it's a small chunk. The large majority of people, and he even said it on stage, that it's okay, now we're going to shift our focus to how we can help SMEs using platforms more, because he knows that that's where most of the money is in advertising is coming from, so he's not worried. But there are plenty of things like doing the break, we're like, oh wait, no. These trends needed to be a better place, yes, but are they ready? No, they're not. Unless they get into Europe, they're going to struggle even to change our mindset. And all Threads is at the moment is a place where social media managers can go and have corporate banter with each other because the company doesn't know it exists.
Sounds like a good use of time.
Yeah, don't read trends reports, because again, it's full of tactical bullshit. All I ask for people to do, whether it's here with Frankie or not, I don't give a damn. I'm lucky enough where I've got a lot of business. Still want your business. I'm just trying to be cool here. But essentially, start thinking strategically, please. Okay, every brand in here can do a better job on the platforms if they actually find a problem that the platforms can solve. And don't be afraid if it doesn't to not, because if most of you switch off everything you did tomorrow morning, nobody would give a fuck. That's the reality. Okay, that's the reality. But yet, people in here are varying from using 6-figure budgets to bloody 1 million budgets in social, and you're just wasting your money because you're not actually doing anything that is impactful. So all I ask is to think strategically. If you can't think strategically,
We have a question.
We have a question.
How are you? It's a follow-on to your threads mentioned there. It launches in the EU on Thursday. And what do you think were the biggest mistakes the platform made with the original launch, and what do they need to change to make it a long-term success?
I don't think they need to change much. The fact that now it's accessible, it will help. They made some huge decisions around plugging it into automatically bringing followers from Instagram over. However, Instagram people don't use Twitter probably quite a lot. They need to convince everyone else. So it will start from the top down rather than the bottom up. You need the big players to move. You need the big media publications to make a stand. You need people to stop reporting the news on those platforms in order to give Threads a chance of winning. Once that becomes the source of instant news and breaking news, now it's going to start playing it as a competitor to Twitter. No matter whether you like it or not, most times people go to the actual platforms is to actually find what's breaking and what's happening on the pulse. Live engagement when it comes to sport, news, breaking things that are happening. That's where the source is. And that's where it works to be. Some people will argue Reddit to an extent as well, but once they start to bring the media houses over, it could be toast. But I don't think it will be. It would be hard for people to navigate away from it.
Brighton news, thanks.
I think it's only reader view for EU at the moment.
Yeah, that's all I see, and I'm like, I still have a post that is like again this kind of rainbow wheel of dead posting. Because funny enough, when it came, we found a way to actually get on it. We used an ATB bypass to actually download the app, and we had Ryanair up and running for a few weeks, and even our own account. So we actually got it, so they figured out this was happening, and then they closed us down.
Have we any other questions before we wrap up? Yes, Michael, thanks so much. One last question. How do you chill out?
Wine or
Wine. Friday night, two glasses of Rioja and a single malts. And then I think for me is like, because my mind is like this hamster wheel, or maybe 8 hamsters in there.
Yeah.
It takes a while for me to switch off. So I actually need white noise or something like Netflix, and I spend a lot of time in the evening binging on, because even at that I'm on my phone first. I'm like looking and scrolling. Eventually I'll start to kind of take it down, and then 3 or 4 hours later, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting there, what the fuck am I doing? I'm not thinking about what I should be. It's time for sleep. And then I go. But again, it takes a while. It's probably down to my maybe dyslexic brain, or just, again, I've become an addict. I don't know. It's hard to switch off. But again, that's the benefit of, I guess, what the business I run, because I can be probably one of the most best informed people on it.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thanks so much. Really appreciate you being a guest on That's What I Call Marketing.
And a big thank you for everyone for coming, by the way, too. Look, if anything, you came to hear a bit of unfiltered, maybe preaching, but again, I keep saying, please think strategically, and hopefully we'll all do better work.
Brilliant. Michael Corcoran.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and apologies again for the slightly lower quality of sound. I have to say, I really enjoyed spending time with Michael. He's a smart guy, he's driven, and honestly, in the conversations off stage, he is really sound. He wants to do good work and help people do good work, and in lots of ways, he's a low tolerance for bad work. That's okay. So look, that's it for this episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Please do subscribe, share, rate, and review the show wherever you're listening or watching. It really does help us reach a new audience and build on this great community of amazing marketers. Of course, if you would like to reach this engaged community of great marketers, you can get involved with That's What I Call Marketing through show sponsorship or content partnerships. Get in touch with us on thatswhatIcallmarketing.com and let's talk.